Welcome back to the deep dive. If you need a shortcut to being well informed, you've definitely come to the right place.
Today we have a really fascinating stack of material. It bridges ancient contemplative wisdom with some very cutting-edge cognitive neuroscience.
And the topic is one that honestly is just mind boggling for scientists and philosophers. It's a profound temporary state called Nirodha Samapatti.
Or cessation attainment.
Right. And when we talk about this state, the claims, they're almost unbelievable. We're going to deep dive into sources that document expert meditators who can intentionally generate, well, a complete temporary absence of consciousness.
Yeah, and we're talking about being fully unresponsive, potentially for days. Some of the historical accounts claim up to 7 days.
No food, no water, no excretion. It's like a state of absolute biological pause.
Practitioners describe it as a total cut in the stream of awareness. So it's something even beyond, that state of pure non-reactive consciousness.
So our mission today is to take these extraordinary, almost anecdotal claims and really test them against what is probably the most sophisticated model of the mind we have right now.
The predictive processing framework.
Exactly. So the central question we're tackling is, it's fundamental. How does modern science even begin to explain this radical, intentional deconstruction of reality and self,
Yeah.
to the point where consciousness just temporarily stops?
And more importantly for many, what's the actual path? How do you do it? What's the systematic practice that gets a mind there?
Okay, so where do we even start with that?
Well, to answer that, we have to start at the bedrock of how your brain works. And under this predictive processing view, the brain is fundamentally a hierarchical prediction machine.
Okay, not a sponge just soaking things up. It's a prediction machine.
Not at all. It's not passively reacting to the world. It's constantly generating and then refining this internal generative model of the world and, crucially, of itself.
And the goal of all this constant generation is to minimize surprise, isn't it? To minimize what they call prediction error.
Precisely. That drive is called active inference. Think of the brain like a huge, constantly running corporation.
Okay.
The ultimate goal is just survival and growth. And mathematically, minimizing prediction error, especially over the long term, that's the same as minimizing uncertainty. It ensures the organism keeps a stable and accurate model so it can keep existing.
It has to know what's coming next to stay alive. I
Exactly.
like that corporation analogy. So in this company, who's the CEO and who's down on the factory floor?
That's the hierarchy. The lower levels, that's your factory floor.
Hmm.
They process the concrete sensory data, the sights, the sounds, the feelings of right here, right now.
Okay.
But the higher levels, the executive suite, they encode abstract, conceptual information. This is where your long-term planning happens, your thinking, your memory, and the construction of all these complex what-if scenarios.
So if I do X, Y might happen. That whole process.
That's it.
Okay, let's unpack how this framework explains who you are. If I'm just this predictive system trying to minimize error, why do I feel like a coherent person with a past and a future?
Because the self is not a single permanent thing. It's a construction. It's a really necessary part of that high-level executive suite.
You need it for something.
You do. You need a self-model built from all your past experience just to predict the sensory outcomes of your future actions. You have
Yeah.
to model having a body that can pick up this coffee cup to actually, pick it up successfully.
That still sounds deeply counterintuitive. I mean, if the self is just a prediction, why does the emotional pain of, say, grief or intense attachment to something, why does that feel so utterly real, so non-negotiable? That model feels robust enough to really hurt us.
That's because the emotional systems are tied to the precision assigned to those high-level predictions. Think of it like certainty or confidence. If your high-level model predicts, I need this relationship to be happy, and that relationship breaks, the resulting prediction error is massive. The system then assigns a very high precision or weight to the feeling of pain, and it demands immediate action to fix it.
So meditation is the work of turning down the volume or the precision on those big narrative predictions.
Exactly. And our sources show this deconstruction happens in clear, identifiable stages. The contemplative path systematically dismantles this self-model layer by layer, starting from the most abstract.
What are the layers?
Well, we can identify 4. The first and the thickest layer is the narrative self. This is the CEO, the one concerned with your life story, your long-term goals, all the complex stories you tell yourself about who you are.
And the goal of early practice is to soften that narrative.
Right. Then beneath that, you find the embodied or experiencing self. Once that narrative chatter quiets down, you're left with just the immediate reality. pure sensing in the now.
It's just the body, immediate sensations.
Okay. Then, subtler still, you find the witness or pure consciousness, that quiet sense of just observing experience without judging it. It's the feeling that I am here watching.
The silent observer.
And finally, the deconstruction can go even further to the fourth stage, cessation, nothingness itself.
This brings us right to the how, this traditional path. It aligns perfectly with the science, with the PP model's description of just progressively reducing abstraction.
It's a method for systematically pruning the counterfactual tree.
Reducing the brain's tendency to just run all these complex simulations about the future.
It's a very sustained, precise process of letting go of predictive processes, and it moves through 3 core stages of practice. This is really the recipe for deconstruction.
So the first step is focused attention, or FA. We know this as shamatha, right? Stabilizing attention on an object, usually the breath. What is that actually doing in the brain?
Computationally, what you're doing is intentionally upweighting the precision of that focused object, the breath.
You're telling your brain this is the most important thing right now.
Exactly. By making the breath incredibly important, you are, at the same time, downweighting the precision of predictions that are higher up in the hierarchy.
So, my thoughts.
Your thoughts, yes. So if a thought about next week's meeting just pops up, because you've assigned such high precision to the feeling of the breath, the meeting thought is computationally ignored. It loses its subjective realness.
You're not fighting the thoughts, you're just starving them of attention.
Precise. Now, once the system gets really stable and concentrated, the practice shifts dramatically, and you move to open monitoring, or OM. And this is a very counterintuitive step.
Why is it counterintuitive?
Because in FA, you're so intensely focused. In OM, you relax that focus. Instead, you treat all arising signals, every thought, every emotion, every sensation, non-preferentially. You assign low relative precision to everything.
The executive suite stops prioritizing.
Right.
So instead of focusing on my breath and ignoring the thought, now I just acknowledge both, but I don't follow either of them.
That's it. The goal shifts from concentration to reducing grasping. You stay in this restful, alert state where you just quickly let arising experiences, which are all just predictions, go without confirming them or elaborating on them.
Which brings you closer and closer to just the raw present moment.
And that systematic reduction of what we call temporal thickness, moving away from past and future, brings us to the next stage, non-dual meditation, or ND. This is the deepest step right before cessation.
What's the target here?
The aim of ND is to dissolve the last, most basic assumption the brain makes, the subject-object dichotomy, the split.
So even in that witness state, there's still a subtle feeling that I am observing this experience.
Exactly. There's an I and a this. Non-dual practice targets that subtle I. Since all experience is constructed by abstracting away from the immediate here and now, a true deep entry into a present moment without any temporal thickness, well, it would cause that duality to disappear.
It's just a continuous, systematic reduction of abstract processing, which eventually just reduces the highest level predictions, the self-model, to zero.
Which leads us to the moment we've been building towards, Nirodha Samapatti.
And this is where it gets really, really interesting scientifically. If non-dual awareness is letting go of that subject-object split, then cessation is the release of the very subtlest expectation to even be aware.
It's the de-reification of pure awareness itself.
Wow.
So in predictive processing terms, when you deconstruct the self and awareness to this extreme depth, you are removing the necessary computational condition for consciousness to even operate.
Consciousness needs a coherent model of reality to simulate.
And if it doesn't have one, deep deconstruction can lead to a transient failure to generate a coherent reality model.
That sounds, well, extremely dramatic.
It is. This failure is what some might call Bayesian unbinding. Think of it like your brain suddenly losing the sticky tape that holds all your senses and memories and self-concepts together into one unified picture.
And when the system fails to maintain that coherence,
the entire unified field of self and awareness just temporarily collapses.
So when researchers look at meditators capable of this in the lab, what does the hard data show about this collapse?
We see 2 really consistent findings across multiple labs. First, there's a strong desynchronization of neural activity, a decorrelation.
Meaning the different parts of the brain just stop working together. The orchestra stops listening to the conductor.
A perfect analogy. The unified reality model breaks down. And second, there's a dramatic drop, a suppression of alpha power.
And the alpha frequency band is a key signature of waking consciousness.
And it's a dominant one, yes. So its suppression right before or during cessation is basically the neural evidence that the mechanism of awareness itself is being temporarily shut down.
And what about that 7-day claim? How does science account for the subjective experience of time just stopping?
The subjective evidence is very clear on this. The experience feels like a blip. It's identical to how patients report feeling under general anesthesia. It's impossible to tell the difference between 1 second and 7 days because the brain's monitoring of time is gone.
Time, just like the self, is another abstract, constructed prediction.
And if the system stops running that prediction, time ceases to exist for you.
And yet, we have that fascinating data point of one expert meditator who was able to accurately time his emergence from a 90-minute cessation.
Yes.
That suggests some incredibly subtle, non-conscious timing mechanism might still be running.
It does. It raises a huge question. Does the system have some deeper metabolic clock running that's independent of the conscious self model? We just don't know yet, but that's where the research is focused.
So what does this all mean? Why would anyone pursue this? This radical state of nothingness, which involves a temporary loss of consciousness. It almost sounds like an escape.
And that's the critical insight. The cessation is not the ultimate goal. It's the reset mechanism. The profound value is in the realization that follows when you reemerge.
Like rebooting a computer.
A bit like that. We know that deep insights, those aha moments that fundamentally change your perspective, they can be understood as fact-free learning.
You're clearing the mind's internal board so that it can see the truth of its own programming.
Exactly. This deep deconstruction lets the system have novel insights about how the mind works that are just inaccessible when you're identified with the rigid narrative self or even the pure witness. When the system restarts, it sees the process of its own construction happening in real time.
And what is the content of that realization? What does it feel like?
The essential quality that follows is freedom. It's a sense that the system frees itself from clinging, from friction. The experience reveals the groundlessness or the emptiness, the shunya of all phenomena.
It shows you from experience that awareness itself is a constructed thing.
Even the pure witness state, yes. That
Right.
too is a construction built on causes and conditions.
That realization that everything is constructed and therefore groundless, that must just tremendously reduce suffering in one's actual life.
It does. When you stop believing that your self-model is some permanent, fixed thing, the internal friction just dramatically decreases. You see that your viewpoints are just past conditioning that your brain assigned high precision to.
And it changes how you see others.
Absolutely. Seeing the constructed nature of the self dissolves the boundary between self and other. And that spontaneously leads to this increase in boundless care and compassion, because the suffering out there in the world is no longer perceived as separate from your own system.
So this whole journey from the complex narrative self through these disciplined stages of practice all the way to the collapse of consciousness and back, it's a radical path of reduction. It's the intelligent system dismantling its own models of reality, time, and self one layer at a time.
And it's so important to reiterate that this process is ultimately about seeing the constructed, dependent nature of reality. It's not about escaping it. The insight is that everything is interdependently arising.
So, for you who are listening, consider this provocative thought as you go about your day, navigating the world built by your own predictive brain. If you follow this systematic path of deconstruction to its logical experiential end, if you trace the constructed self all the way to cessation, the realization is that there is literally nowhere to stand and nothing to hold on to.
Not even consciousness.